Hello and welcome to the Ice Guys, brought to you by the National Hockey Now Network. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a betting perspective. With pro sports handicappers, Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and various guests from the world of hockey and sports betting. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron.
Welcome to the Ice Guys, presented by National Hockey Now. Sunday, December the 11th, Ian Cameron and another special guest joining us. We've been special guest heavy this week because we've had Alex B. Smith in and out as he is back home in Chicago. But we have another guest joining us today from Alberta, if I'm not mistaken. We've got Nick SRT Betts joining us here for the first time on the Ice Guys show. Nick, thanks for joining us. Welcome. Glad you could make your Ice Guys debut and tell us a little bit betting background, how long you've been doing it.
Good to be here. I've tuned into the show a couple times. I like the viewership engagement. I've only been betting for probably about 2 years, mainly NHL, NBA, NFL. I kind of stay away from the college just because it's not too huge in Canada, but NHL is my main sport, and that's kind of why I'm tuning into this show and hoping to provide you guys a bunch of winners.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. So a couple of years. Do you prefer a certain type of bet in NHL? Sides, totals, player props? I know you delve into the player props as well. How do you do you find you do well with those and you prefer those, or does it not matter too much?
I started doing player props, and then the way that the NHL is recording shots on goal was a little funky this year, so I stopped doing that. So mainly just sides, totals, sides and totals. If it's right, then a spread, but usually just sides and totals.
Yeah, definitely when it comes to player props, you're right. You're not the first one to voice that complaint. There have been people that say that's a shot on goal, and yet the damn arena did not record it as one.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been something that there's multiple guests that have had this issue when it comes to betting shots on goal props. So that's where it can be a little bit dicey sometimes. No question about that. We're going to break down the Sunday card, obviously, in a few minutes. We've got 6 games on tap. Just first, though, we'll look back quickly on last night. It was a pretty busy Saturday in the NHL. Not as busy as some Saturdays where we've had 12, 13 games on a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have that many yesterday, but we'll start with just the 3 afternoon games. We'll break it down in portions here. Ottawa, a solid win in Nashville, 3-2 in overtime. I can't get a great read. Nobody can probably on this Ottawa team because they're up and down like a yo-yo. They end up having a brutal game against LA on home ice to begin the week. I thought they played pretty well enough to win against Dallas, but it was really horrendous goaltending from Forsberg. A couple of those goals against Dallas should not have gone in. And then against Nashville, look, they overcome a slow start. They give up the first goal, but they bounce back from that and take advantage of a mistake by Saros on one of those goals. They beat Nashville 3-2, a solid win in Nashville against a Predators team that had been playing a little bit better. They had knocked off the Devils recently, the Islanders as well. So give Ottawa credit, a pretty solid performance from them. Dallas beats Detroit 3-2 in overtime. Frustrating for me. I took a shot with Detroit plus a 185 they were. At the price I took, and they were leading 1-0 early in the game. They tied it 2-2 in the second. Game goes to overtime, and the Stars end up getting the game-winning goal 3-2, courtesy of it was, I believe, Rope Hintz who got the overtime winner for the Stars 3-2 over the Detroit Red Wings. And the Battle of Florida, Tampa Bay. I mean, it was a popular side from a lot of us. I know Alex, congrats to him. He had it as his best bet on the show yesterday. Tampa Bay in regulation at plus 110. They got it done with a 3-goal third period to break a 1-1 tie and end up getting the 4-1 victory over the Florida Panthers. Panthers just can't seem to get on any sort of run right now. And the more I watch this team, the more concerned I am. And obviously, I'm always concerned when Sergei Bobrovsky, not Spencer Knight, is in net for the Panthers. And to me, they don't have the 4-line wave of offense they did last year. And second of all, I don't think their defensive play has been very good this year. And it's not like it was great last year either, but this year they're really having some problems there with the defensive zone coverage. And also, of course, whenever Bobrovsky's in net, I think we're at the point now where Spencer Knight's just about to claim the number one starting goaltender spot for Florida because you just can't rely on the consistency of Bobrovsky from one start to the next. Nick, what did you think of those 3 afternoon games yesterday?
I couldn't catch them, but I echo a lot of the statements you made. I kind of expected Nashville to actually win that. Staros has been really steady at home, but like you said, the Senators, it's kind of been a hard read. Everyone expected them to be really good with their off-season pickups, but a good win, a good road win for that team. Hopefully they can build off that, and we can get a couple more wins off the Senators coming up. The Stars, one of the best home teams in the league behind the Bruins. That was, I think, an expected win from myself, but I wouldn't have laid the juice on the Stars. I think that Red Wings bet was a good value bet, and it went to OT. That could have really gone anyway. And the Lightning, the Lightning seem to be the Panthers' kryptonite in that Battle of Florida. They can't figure the Lightning out. Going back to the playoffs the last couple of years, going back to that game. I don't know if that was because of Bobrovsky starting, but I couldn't catch the game. So I don't know if Spencer Knight would have made a difference. I know he's going to start today, so we'll kind of see what he can bring.
All right, yeah, definitely. And Spencer Knight, like I say, he's just, I think, a little bit better right now, more reliable at the moment, no question about it, compared to obviously Sergei Bobrovsky right now at this moment. The night games yesterday in the NHL, we had a bunch of them obviously taking place last night. We had LA with a 4-2 win against Montreal. And I was really a proponent of that first period puck line look on the Kings. I thought it was going to be, they pounced on Montreal early because nobody on the Kings, whether it was Todd McClellan or any player, should have liked the performance against Toronto because the Leafs just dummied them, completely dummied them and fucked them up from start to finish. That was domination from the Leafs. Like the LA barely had the puck that night, stuck in their own zone for basically the whole game. I'm not sure I've seen the Leafs dominate an opponent in years the way they controlled the game and dominated the game against the Kings. And you figured the Kings would want to have a much better performance and effort from against a weaker team, of course, Montreal, compared to Toronto. And they did. They jumped out to the 2-0 lead, and they pretty much led wire to wire. They win 4-2 over the Montreal Canadiens. Carolina, this is one where I'm very frustrated because I had a kind of a down day in the NHL, more downs than ups yesterday. I left Carolina off the card, and I'm mad that I didn't take them because I figured Islanders, a little bounce spot for them after the New Jersey win. I didn't trust them on the back-to-back. The only concern I had was all the travel Carolina's done. Because we talked about it on the show. They went from Pittsburgh to St. Louis, out to the West Coast for those few games, and then back now to Long Island today. That's a lot of time zone travel, time zone changes as well during that span. Would it catch up to them? But no, certainly they were ready to respond after the Anaheim loss, and I figured they would want to after losing to the lowly Ducks the other night, and it was a good performance. Pyotr Kochetkov, here's a guy that's going to continue to get more starts as well. You can't count on Frederik Andersen. I've said this a million times. The body part's made of cotton candy and plastic. You cannot trust him to stay on the ice and stay healthy. Ranta is now getting up to his 40s almost. You know, the latter stages of his career. This should be Pyotr Kochetkov getting more and more starts if I'm Rod Brind'Amour. He's earned it. He's been good. He was great in the AHL with the Chicago Wolves last year, leading them into the Calder Cup. You know, you look at it, he is a goalie that obviously they're going to look toward for the future. I think the now for Pyotr Kochetkov now because he's playing well for the Hurricanes and was very solid in the shutout last night over the Islanders. Calgary and Toronto, what a terrific hockey game this was, back and forth. It was a little chippy, a little spirited as well, and Toronto gets a 5-4 win. Mitch Marner now 22 games with the consecutive game point streak. It rolls on. He's now 29 away from catching the great one, number 99, Wayne Gretzky. Now, there's still a long way to go, but you know it's been an incredible run here. 22 games, it's kept going, and he got the game-winning goal to boot last night in overtime against the Calgary Flames. Another disappointing loss for Calgary, where they do a lot of good things, carried the play at times. They got their offense going, but unfortunately, it was not one of Darth Vladar's, they call him, Dan Vladar's better nights in net. There was a couple goals. The Nylander goal he should have had. The fourth goal wasn't great. Daryl Sutter alluded to that in the press conference. Discipline was also an issue again for Calgary. They took a shit ton of penalties against Columbus, paid the price for it. And again, last night, and I know Daryl Sutter's frustrated with the number of penalties, but I hate to say it to him. A lot of them were warranted. There were a lot of them that were they were penalties. The high stick in overtime. Yeah, you hate to give a team a penalty in overtime. There's a blatant high stick by Huberdeau there on Rasmus Sandin. You got a better fucking control of your stick. Simple as that. You can't be just off the face-off circle, just whipping your stick around and hitting Sandin in the face. You just got to have control of it. He did not. That was a penalty. And I know he was frustrated. He had the line after the game there. I remember from my days coaching in Chicago in the 90s when we went to Toronto, we knew what was going to happen, alluding to the Leafs getting all the calls for their home games, which was a funny remark. But I don't know if I buy that either, because if Toronto's been getting all the calls, why haven't they won anything, in 20 years? It's not like getting all the calls from the officials has helped them win, a playoff series in the last 20 years. So I think it's just Daryl Sutter trying to deflect the negative thoughts away from his team and just direct it somewhere else, because he knows they played a good game. They had a good effort, and he doesn't want to say, hey, we played like shit and we another loss. He just decided, you know what, we probably deserved maybe a better fate. I didn't like the number of penalties called against my team. I'll throw the refs under the bus instead. And that's exactly what he did last night. Even though I thought, again, a lot of Calgary penalties, but a lot of them they deserved. I hate to say it. I watched the game. They deserved a lot of those penalties. So Toronto, though, gets the win 5-4 in overtime. And then the late night game frustrated me because I had the over and I had Vancouver, and I knew Vancouver with all the power. The power play was pathetic. Absolutely dreadful. Too much passing, too much overhandling of the puck. Horrible giveaway by JT Miller on one of those power plays, which led to the Minnesota shorthanded goal that really broke Vancouver's back, made it 2-0. The over had no chance. It was one of those nights. Spencer Martin was phenomenal because it could have been 4 or 5-0 Minnesota after the first period with the way he played. And Gustafsson that's as good as I've ever seen him play. And this is a guy that's, been up and down, more downs than ups. And last night he has one of the best starts probably of his career, shutting out the Vancouver Canucks. So unfortunate to see the over go down to defeat last night. But credit to Minnesota, credit to Gustafsson and net. And again, every little mistake Vancouver makes, they seem to pay the price for it these days. Nick, what did you think of the night games?
I didn't get to watch a lot of the games. I watched the Kings and Canadiens because I had a bet on it. I had the Kings and then parlayed it with the over 4.5. It was just a same game parlay. Kind of got lucky in the third period there with a flurry of goals. I thought it was kind of dead in the second period, but the Kings came through and the Canadiens did a little bit of goal scoring too. As for the Hurricanes and Islanders, I took the Islanders, which I know they were on the second game of a back-to-back, and at first I wanted to take Carolina, and then Aho was announced out, so I stayed off of that. I didn't think that the Hurricanes would have the offense against this Islanders defense, and Sorokin's been Vezina caliber this year. He's been steady in all regards, so that's why I went Islanders, but they couldn't just seem to find out or figure out the Hurricanes, I don't know, backup. He's not playing like a backup, but they couldn't figure him out. And you and me and a lot of the other viewers, the over 6.5, I was on that for the Wild and Canucks. And Gustafsson just with a 30-35 save shutout. Pretty impressive. I know the Canucks have been putting the puck in the net. They've been scoring pretty good, but couldn't figure out the Wild on their, I think it was 3rd and 4. I thought that was a letdown spot for the Wild. I did not expect the game to go that way. I thought Canucks too, but the yesterday kind of a little unpredictable. Other than the Leafs, I did expect the Leafs to take down the Flames, but yeah, I'm hoping my reads are a little bit more accurate today because yesterday was a little bit unpredictable.
Yeah, you and me both. I mean, it wasn't one of my better days, but I did also take, and Alex was on it too. I forgot to mention that the Leafs team total over hit, obviously, in that game against Calgary. I thought that was worth a look. And, especially with Toronto offensively with and the thing with Toronto is I think you're going to see them. I think their team total overs are going to be worth a look moving forward now, because right now Mitch Marner can't be stopped. He's getting at least a point in every game, 22 straight. Austin Matthews is starting to get it going now. Look out now. after a bit of a slow start to the season. He got it going the last week or so. Toronto, and Nylander's been terrific. The big three, the guys that have got the big money from Kyle Dubas, they're all scoring and they're all in good form right now. So that's why I think right now Toronto team total overs, at least in the near future, until they cool off, going to be something you can consider looking at game to game with the Leafs right now. All right, let's go to Sunday's card. We've got 6 games. We'll start with the Colorado Avalanche and the St. Louis Blues. Even money, -110 both sides, 6 the total in this game. I mean, I'm not betting Colorado games over right now. It's just not going to happen because we've talked about who's out of the lineup. The offense is just, a lot of their key cogs are out. They did get Big Val Nichushkin back, though, which is significant. They got him back last game against the New York Rangers, which does help, but you're still talking about McKinnon out, Rodriguez out, Arturi Lehkonen, who might be back, though, I'm hearing. Lehkonen, upper body, is traveling with the team. Adrian Dater of Colorado Hockey Now, of course, one of the great team websites at nationalhockeynow.com. Make sure you check them out. He says that Lehkonen, there's a good chance he's going to play, and they're expecting him to return here for the Colorado Avalanche today. So they got Big Val back the last game. It looks like there's a good chance they have Lehkonen back today. So you might have a Val Nichushkin, Lehkonen, Rantanen top line, because I would think they'll put Lehkonen back on the top line. They'll move Newhook down the lineup a little bit, probably to the second line with Comfort and O'Connor, and then shift Cogliano down to the bottom 6. That's probably what we're looking at now for Colorado. But so they are getting a couple of key cogs back offensively, assuming Lehkonen's back as well. But and it's still a team that, with all the injuries, they have tried to play tighter, stronger team defense, and it certainly played out that way in their last couple games against Boston and the New York Rangers, both of them staying under. The problem is, betting St. Louis under the total right now, which I don't want to do. It's like I don't want to bet Colorado over, but I don't want to bet St. Louis under right now because the Blues are just giving up goals in bunches. Defensively, they've been brutal. The penalty kill has been horrendous. No goaltender, whether it's Binnington or Greiss, has been given this team confidence in between the pipes right now. So it becomes a real tough game overall, both side-wise and totals-wise. Colorado's struggling, losing games with the key personnel out. Although, again, you do at least get Nichushkin and maybe as well Lehkonen back, which should help. I'd still lean Colorado. But I don't know if I want to lay a $1.15, $1.20 on the road with them, early start with travel, and I want to see them win. I want to see them put a W on the board before I'm ready to back Colorado again. In the meantime, I'm just going to lean a little bit to the Avs. Probably a game I'm going to stay off. I might look at a couple props, but not much other than that. What do you think here, Nick? Colorado, St. Louis?
My first instinct was Colorado, but they've been decimated by injuries. It's been really hard to back Colorado confidently just because of how many people they have out. That note you made about the player you just mentioned, his name coming back in.
Lehkonen, Arturi Lehkonen.
Yeah. Him possibly coming back in would obviously bump Newhook down and kind of give that first line to be a threat again because McKinnon's out and now they have at least a first line to score some goals. Nichushkin being back for the power play does wonders for them, I think. Especially with St. Louis being they're actually dead last in PK percentage in the league. And Nichushkin, I can never pronounce his name, a great net front presence. I think that if they're on the power play, even just because Makar, obviously on the back end, he'll bolster that power play, and I think that they'll get a couple goals on the power play. But backing Colorado, like I said, it's kind of difficult right now. Waiting on starting goalies. Binnington has been less than steady. Even their head coach has just been refusing to play him because of his antics and letting in soft goal after soft goal. So if I were to play a side, I would wait on starting goalies. I don't think it's been announced yet, but if it's Binnington, I would probably lay that money on Colorado. Binnington is 0-6 his last 6 starts, and the Blues don't have the best home record. So it's not incredibly juiced, but I would lay I think it's -110 10 on Bet365 right now. That's what'll be an official for me if Binnington is starting.
Yeah, we have no confirmations in goal in this game, either side. We have projected to be Georgiev and Binnington, but neither one has been. Yeah, it's Colorado or pass. I mean, and there is some truth to what some of the chat is saying, that minus 110 is a little absurd and a little nuts for, Colorado. We know they've got still McKinnon, Rodriguez, Landeskog. And then on the blue line, Manson's a big loss. No question about that. They miss him. And, of course, there's Bowen Byram, who's been out for a while. But even with the guys out, they're better than St. Louis. St. Louis is a shit show right now. It's a total mess right now. Craig Berube is saying our attitude isn't right. This was a telling quote from him. I think it's just the attitude of the team right now. It's creeped in, and it's just not good. If they don't come to the rink and think about the team and put the team first, we're not going anywhere. And right now, I don't see that happening. That's not a team I'm backing. That's not a bet on quote. Are you shitting me? That's not a bet on quote when a coach is saying something like that about his hockey team. So, again, this is a Colorado lean. I'm staying off. I'm not going to touch it, but it's definitely, I would take Colorado before I take St. Louis at this moment. Even with the injuries to the Avalanche right now. It's just St. Louis is a toxic team right now at this point in time. No question about that. The totals wise, I'd lean over before under, just because Colorado is starting to get a couple of their key cogs offensively back, but not something strong for me with that. All right, Seattle and Florida. We've got the Florida. The rest of the games are at night, by the way. Florida Panthers minus 160, home favorites, 6.5 the total in this game. I was lining up to take Seattle here at the underdog price here, plus 140. Then I saw Martin Jones confirmed in net, and I'm like, no Martin, no Martin, or no Grubauer, no Seattle for me right now with that. I don't like his game at all, the way it's trending at the moment. Martin Jones. So once I saw that, I'm like, we got to maybe pump the brakes on the Kraken. I still lean that way. Don't get me wrong. Plus 140. You've got Florida on a back-to-back. Florida after a loss last week against the Tampa Bay Lightning, or last night, I should say, against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Didn't play a great game. Penalty trouble cost them a little bit. And then a bad third period. We're in a game that was 1-1, and they ended up winning that game by a score of 4-1. But like I said, Martin Jones, who was in net here for the Seattle Kraken. We remember, I would say, early November, late October is when the run started, and then into early November. And he went through this stretch of starts where he gave up 1, 0, 2, 1, 1, 3, 2, and 2 goals. That's what he gave up between October 29th and November the 19th. It was almost a full month of Martin Jones playing some of the best hockey I've seen from him in years. And it's almost like someone put a spell on him, and now the little pixie dust and whatever ingredients were used to put that spell on Martin Jones are wearing off ever since that time, because he's looked like the beach ball version of Martin Jones lately, as in he can't stop one in between the pipes for them. I mean, since that time, he's given up 5 to San Jose, 4 to Anaheim, 8 to LA in that memorable 9-8 game when we had our last betcast. And by the way, our next betcast is Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. So remember that. And if you want to join us, send me a DM. We'll send you the link for the betcast this Tuesday night. But we were on the air for that betcast, 9-8 Seattle. He gives up 8 goals and actually gets the victory in that game. And then he gives up 4 and another loss to Montreal. So his game has trended downward consistently here for the last I would say 4 or 5 starts. So that bothers me a little bit here. We'll have to see who's in goal for Florida. Knight was not available yesterday. He's day-to-day right now with the illness that he's going through. We'll have to see if he's available today. If not, you're going to be looking at Paul Maurice not having much of a choice here. He'd have to either go to Bobrovsky on back-to-back or go with Alex Lyon, who has been called up from the AHL, who actually got some starts with the Flyers organization years ago. But doesn't have much of a track record of success at the NHL level. So that becomes the concern here for Florida. Who's going to be in net? I definitely have the over circled, because with Martin Jones in net, the over is the first thing I think of in terms of totals right now. It is a revenge spot too for Seattle. Remember, they had that home loss to Florida. Like I said, I would lean to the Kraken here, but I'm going to come off that bet or that position because of the Martin Jones situation, him being in net. I'd maybe look at some player props. I still say right now for the Kraken, Alex Wenberg in the top line center spot, an undervalued commodity. We know Matty Beniers is probably the front runner to win the Calder Trophy right now with the terrific season he's having for the Seattle Kraken. For Florida, in terms of their offense, and you would think they're going to be able to score some goals. I keep mentioning how Carter Verhaeghe is someone you might want to look toward now because he's just rolling for the Panthers. You could look at Sam Reinhart and E2 Cool Mint Lusterinen, as I call him, because they're playing alongside Barkov, who's back now, who's very good facilitating. So his line mates could be worth a prop look in this game. So I'm more likely to bet the over than I am Seattle now, but I still lean to Seattle a little bit. It's just I don't want any part of Martin Jones from a side perspective right now, not with his play falling off once again, as we kind of all expected it would at some point. What do you think here, Nick? Kraken, Panthers?
Not feeling so great about my Kraken bet now based on the chat and kind of your comments about Jones. He started off really good, like you said, and he's kind of slid. But so is Bobrovsky, Bobrovsky hasn't started good. He's kind of slid this entire season. That's why I went Kraken, just because of the news on night. A couple comments I made about the game here. Florida is winless against the Central this season. The revenge spot, like you mentioned, the shellacking that Florida gave Seattle in December. I think Seattle's probably pretty upset about that, and I think it'll be a pretty high scoring game. It would have been over for me as well, but I'm taking the value on the 140 with the Kraken. Seattle's a really good road team. Florida's a really good home team. Seattle 8-2 on the road, and Florida's 7-2 at home. I think the value with 140 is why I went Kraken. I think the coach with the decision to go Jones is. I don't know why he'd go Jones, especially with Grubauer being healthy and they're not on a back-to-back. But I'm thinking that the team will play a little bit better with Jones behind them, especially because he's been struggling. That's my look on it with the Kraken. I would have went over 6.5, which is I think minus 110 right now, or something close to that. But
actually gone up a bit, minus 120. But yeah, so there's some money on the over. Yep.
Yeah. So there's money on the over, and it's trending into the minus 120s. That's a good look too. But I'm just gonna stick to my guns here with the Kraken, and hopefully they can outscore Jones, and hopefully he doesn't let in some beach ball goals.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you hope for. They do have a great road record, and I've said this a bunch of times. I look to bet on this team on the road this season, and they did lose to Washington, which was disappointing, but they really got into the Oleksiak game misconduct. 5-minute major really was a turning point, because that game was there for them, and then it kind of got away from that point on, and then they never got the game back against Seattle in their favor, and very bad penalty for him to take there as well, Oleksiak. But definitely when you look at it here, it's a situation. And by the way, because of that, he's also been suspended for 3 games, so he's not going to be available. So that's one of your big shutdown defensemen on this Seattle team. That hurts. It's probably good for the over, actually, as well, him being out. But yeah, I definitely will be on the over probably, especially if I get a Bobrovsky or a Lyon in net. If I get Bobrovsky or Lyon in net, I might even add a small Seattle bet, because I like this spot. They lost to Florida. Florida's off the big rivalry game yesterday. Seattle's looking to bounce back after a setback against Washington as well. I'll add Seattle as a smaller wager for me if it's anyone but Knight. Anyone but Spencer Knight, I will add Seattle as a smaller bet here. Because then the Jones versus whoever, the discrepancy, the difference isn't as significant, because Bobrovsky can't be trusted. He's inconsistent, and Lyon does not have a great track record of success at the NHL level. You go back to his Philly days, he wasn't great there whenever he got starts for the Flyers years ago. So if it's Lyon or it's Bobrovsky, I'll add a small Seattle bet, and I'll be on the over regardless in this game, 6.5. All right, next up, we've got the LA Kings and the Columbus Blue Jackets. LA minus 150 road favorite, 6.5 the total in this one. Like the spot for the Kings last night. Don't love the spot so much for them tonight. They're on back-to-back after a win last night against the Montreal Canadiens. And the Columbus Blue Jackets remain a team that's not the easiest team to fade, believe it or not, with all the injuries. You should be wanting to fade this team every game with who's out of the lineup. And I find myself saying, I got to try to look to bet against this team every single day with Jake Bean and Nick Blankenberg, Adam Boquist, Zach Werenski, 4 of your 6 starting defensemen out of the lineup. You're also without Danforth and Voracek up front. Tessier hasn't played this year. They did recently get Lionel back, which helps. Definitely you should be wanting to go against Columbus at every reasonable opportunity. But unfortunately, it's a situation where they've been digging in. They've found ways to win. Their offense has still, been capable. And I think when you look at this hockey team, I do have to give them credit for, somehow, hanging in there with all the key personnel out of the lineup right now. So, it's not a shoe-in for LA. I think LA should win, even on the back-to-back. And they do face Elvis Merzlikins, who, of course, has to start here because it was announced that Jonas Korpisalo has been placed on IR for the Columbus Blue Jackets. He was injured on Friday night against the Flames. He'll be out for at least a week. Now, his numbers weren't great. He wasn't exactly playing spectacular, but his numbers were Dominik Hasek-like. Compared to Elvis Merzlikins for the Blue Jackets. I mean, I feel bad. We've talked about this. I think he's been shaken up mentally ever since the tragic incident with his best friend and his teammate and his countryman, Matisse Kivlenieks. I mean, that was just horrible. The firework incident, and you trace his play back to that incident, that tragedy. He hasn't played well since then. So it's a mental thing a little bit, as much, if not more, than it is physical with Merzlikins. 4.81 goals against, .862 save percentage. He did come in, enter the game against relief against Calgary and played okay, but now being able to do it starting, that's going to be the question here going into this matchup against the LA Kings. The Kings, again, bouncing back, beating Montreal after that horrible game against Toronto. We'll see if they can keep it going in this one. This is probably one of those games where, rather than betting everything on the over 6.5, I might do a split. Half and half Kings team total, half and half that, half and half with the full game over is probably what I'll end up doing in this game. Put half of it on the Kings team total over 3.5, even money, half of it on over 6.5 at plus 100 in this game, because I think the Kings will probably do the brunt of the scoring. And you do have Columbus as well. Let's not forget, beating Calgary, that game meant a little something extra to them. They're big free agent acquisition, Johnny Gaudreau playing his former team for the first time. I think that pumped them up a little bit to beat the Flames. Now, coming off that, are they able to bring that same intensity for what's still a very injury-riddled, depleted hockey team that's somehow given one hell of a hard-trying, solid, sound effort with all these guys out? But I don't know if that's going to be enough moving forward, and it's particularly tonight against the Kings. And I think the Kings now offensively, we started to see them get going other than the Toronto game, their offense. And I think they've got the chance to score some goals here. So I might do a split here between Kings team total over 3.5 and the full game over 6.5. We don't know who's going to be in net, by the way, yet for LA. It was Phoenix Copley last night. And he's been good in the 2 starts. They're going to be tempted maybe to throw him right back in there tonight, but I do think they'll put Jonathan Quick in there. I'm not convinced they'll put Copley in back-to-back. What do you think here, Nick? Kings and Blue Jackets?
It's a tough game to cap for me, just because that win for the Blue Jackets over the Flames, I thought they really locked that game down once they had a lead. They didn't really give the Flames a whole lot. So it was a pretty impressive win. The Kings coming off that back-to-back, I would normally fade the team off the back-to-back, but that win versus Montreal, I watched that game, and they kind of just clogged up the neutral zone and kind of sat back with that 2-0 lead and then scored a little bit in the third. So I feel like they didn't really expend a bunch of energy as much as you normally would on like a back-to-back case. So I would lean Kings, but not at the price that it's at. So that team total, I do like that. I never looked into that, but I do like that look that you gave. No real read on the total for me. Just kind of a tough game to cap here with the situation and the goaltenders. Like you said, Merzlikins hasn't been the best, so that team total would be a look now that you mentioned it.
All right, next up, we've got the Washington Capitals taking on the Winnipeg Jets. Winnipeg minus 130, home favorite, 6 the total in this game. I want to take Winnipeg. I think I probably will. There are things that concern me, though. Washington, for as much as I've ripped the Capitals this year, and in terms of teams I have bet against in the NHL through the first 2 months of the season, I would say, Nick, the Capitals have been one of the teams I've bet against the most. I just think this team, I don't want to say over the hill, but, they got an aging veteran type of core. They've looked like they've been a step slow in a lot of games compared to their opponent, not winning as many puck battles, hemmed in their own zone, depth issues more so now than ever. This is always a team that had quality depth. They don't have quite as much now. After years of contending, look, you're not able to assimilate quality depth as much because you've got to sign all your big-time talent. You're against the cap, and you're not able to build up your depth throughout the lineup as much. And I think we've seen that for Washington here the last couple of years. But they are playing better. They've won 3 in a row. They beat Edmonton 3-2. They beat Philly 4-1. And they beat Seattle 4-1 on Friday night at home. Now they go on the road for a couple in Winnipeg tonight, in Chicago on Tuesday, and then they go back home after that. And they've played well against Winnipeg. Last year, they won both meetings, 5-2 in Winnipeg, 4-3 against Winnipeg in overtime. And they've won 4 of the last 5 between these two teams. That being said, to me, the Jets are not a team I'm willing to go against right now. 4 straight wins for them. They beat Anaheim, Florida, St. Louis, Chicago during this 4-game win streak, 7-1 in their last 8 games. They've bought in completely. Whatever Rick Bowness is preaching and selling, they're buying Winnipeg right now because their team structure has been as good as I've seen it in years. Defensive play has been excellent, no question about that. Connor Hellebuck's in the running for the Vezina with the level that he's playing at in between the pipes. They've got everybody right now in this Winnipeg team, their top guns playing like it. Pierre-Luc Dubois has been great. Mark Scheifele's been great. Kyle Connor's on fire. Blake Wheeler's had an offensive resurgence. We were wondering, where the hell is this guy's ability to produce offensively toward the end of last year? He's gotten that back going into this season. So it's lots to like with Winnipeg, but they've played a lot of games. They've got the potential first place showdown with the Vegas Golden Knights coming up on Tuesday. So it's a bit of a spot where, do you have the discipline and the professionalism and the focus where it needs to be on the Washington Capitals tonight to bring your best game? If they do, I think Winnipeg wins, and I lean hard to the Jets, minus 130. But something about this spot concerns me. I've gone against the Capitals a couple of times. It hasn't worked out well. And by the way, it looks like Saku Manalainen is not going to play for the Jets, as well as Logan Stanley on the blue line, still without Appleton and Ehlers. Still a lot of injuries, though, for Washington. Orlov, best defenseman, Fehervari on the blue line, Brown, Backstrom. Wilson is supposed to be back any day now, but looks like his return might be pushed back a bit. We do have goalies confirmed. It's Charlie Lindgren in net, who's won his past 3 starts, and he's been very good. I can't buy into him continuing this indefinitely. There's been a journeyman goalie for years. He's going through a nice run right now. 3 straight wins, 82 of 86 shots he stopped, and his numbers are getting better. And with Darcy Kemper still out, he's obviously still going to be the guy, but it's Connor Hellebuck confirmed in net for the Jets. And I talked about how just awesome he's been. I'm probably going to end up on the Jets for something in this game. It's just, I might scale back my enthusiasm a little bit because Washington is playing better. They've played well against the Jets head to head, and Winnipeg does have that game against Vegas coming up Tuesday, which again, based on what the standings are right now, Nick, that's going to be a battle potentially for first place in the Western Conference. I mean, those are the 2 teams that are right there, 1 and 2 right now in the Western Conference. So it is a huge game coming up on Tuesday night for Winnipeg. Does that lead to them stumbling tonight? Not saying it will, but it is something to factor in. What do you think here, Nick? Washington, Winnipeg?
It would be Winnipeg or nothing for me. Like you said, I don't know if it'll be the money line or a team total or a regulation bet to bring it into the plus money, but Winnipeg's the second best team on home ice in the league, right behind the Bruins. So it's kind of hard to not back them when they're at home. And Washington was one of the worst road teams up until the last week or two, where they've got a couple of road wins to go from a 2-8 to a 5-8. They were really bad on the road, but the goalie advantage, I think everyone agrees, goes to Winnipeg, with Hellebuck having the season that he's having. Both teams on win streaks, Winnipeg 4 and Washington 3, so both teams are playing with something on the line here. I've been kind of fighting myself all morning to go Winnipeg or not. I'm just going to kind of look into it a little bit more. I might end up playing Winnipeg team total or Winnipeg money line. We'll kind of see if I can find a little bit more of an edge on who I want to pick here. But right now, my lean would be to Winnipeg money line.
Yeah, it's just, gosh, it feels like the price is cheap. I still think they're a better team right now than the Capitals. It's just when you've been betting against a team for so long, and then finally they start taking some of that money from you, like Washington has the last couple of times, you just get a little gun shy, and that's what I am right now. But I absolutely want to emphatically state that if I were to bet a side in this game, it would be Winnipeg, minus 130, and I probably will still get involved as we get closer to puck drop and I get the lineups confirmed on both sides. All right, Philadelphia, Arizona. We've got even money here, minus 110, 5.5 the total. I mean, what can we say? This is putting lipstick on a pig, obviously. We're talking about two of the worst teams in the NHL. I mean, I'm trying to get people pumped up and fired up for this hockey game, but you got Philadelphia second last in the Eastern Conference and Arizona third from the bottom in the Western Conference right now. This will be interesting. Arizona, they did get out. You want to be careful saying, wow, they got back home and look they won a game. They played great. No, their goalie played great. Karel Vejmelka, that was, an unbelievable goaltending performance from him. But it was also against a very good Boston team. So you could say they won the game, they played with energy, and they did. There's no question about that. They were fired up to get back in front of the Mullet Arena faithful there in the desert, Arizona State Coyotes, as we like to call them. And they, but a lot of that too was they banked on their goaltender stealing them 2 points, and that's exactly what happened. But that was against Boston, so you expect them to be, in tough and get outplayed, get outchanced, get outshot. But the bottom line is they got 2 points. They found a way to win. It was ugly. It wasn't pretty. They needed their goaltender to be awesome, but he was, and they got the win. And I think at home, I'm not really in a rush to fade Arizona here on home ice. They're playing with a nice little purpose and energy, and I think they're happy to be back home. I think they actually somehow get energized. And the other night, I could see why. For the first time, it really sounded like that was a loud environment at Mullet Arena, and I think it gets the team going a little bit. And it's not like I'm rushing to back Philly right now, obviously, either. They have had all kinds of struggles scoring. They've just had struggles winning as well. They are just 2-8 in their last 10 games. They did, again, a commendable effort against the Golden Knights the other night, but they lose 2-1 in overtime against Vegas. We'll see if they can bounce back from that here in this one. I don't know if I can take Arizona at even money. Like laying a price with bad teams is not something I'm looking to do, even if it's just even money like this. But I would lean Arizona if I were to bet the side. I think I might take a shot with the over, though, in this game. Again, 5.5 is always I'm interested in looking over the total. And when you look at the Flyers and their offensive struggles, and man, they have had struggles putting the puck in the net. 1 goal against Tampa, 2 against Jersey, 1 against Washington, 1 against Vegas. They can't put the puck in the net. They've had trouble scoring, and that would concern you with the over here. But look who they played: Vegas, Washington, Colorado, New Jersey, Tampa during this stretch. The Islanders, they've played some pretty good, better teams defensively than the Coyotes, who still give up a ton of shots. I think this is a buy low on the Flyer offense. Look, they're not going to every single game the rest of the season only score 1 or 2 goals. They're eventually going to have games where they have a little outburst and they put the puck in their power play's actually been okay. They've scored a power play goal 3 of the last 4 games. And the penalty kill for Arizona, Nick, it's been dreadful. They've given up 2 power play goals in 5 straight games. 5 straight games with at least 2 power play goals allowed. So I think Philly with the power play, okay the last 3 games. They find the back of the net here. Arizona at home, I find they push it a little bit more, a little more aggressive. I think they play a little tighter defensively on the road, but at home they were opening it up the other night against Boston. So I think over 5.5's got a shot here, and that's what I'm going to go with. Flyers, Coyotes over 5.5. And my colleague Alex B. Smith, by the way, who loved the first period over with the Bruins and the Coyotes on Friday night, he sent me his card before the show, even though he's not on today. He likes the first period over again tonight with the Arizona Coyotes. Philly, Arizona over 1.5 in the first period for Alex on this game tonight. Nick, what do you think? Philly, Arizona.
It's hard to back either one of these teams with any kind of confidence. Normally what I kind of like to do is if a team's coming off of a long stretch of losses and they get a win, is to back them to get another win, just because if you're coming off consecutive losses and you get a win, you don't really want to resort back to losing.
That's what I often think the same way. Yep. Yep.
But backing Arizona with that mindset, I don't know if I can apply that to the Coyotes. My note said to go Coyotes money line, but I don't know if I can. There's not a lot of confidence in either one of these teams. The Flyers, 4 losses in their last 5. Obviously, the Coyotes on a month-long road trip, which is like extremely taxing. Finally back at home, and then they're back on the road in 2 days, which is a little bit of a rough spot. I think that they're going to want to come out and win this game before they head back to San Jose on Tuesday. But as of right now, it's Coyotes or nothing. I don't really have a look on the total, but like you said, that 5.5 is a really low number. I found that the Flyers tend to play up to their competition with these low-scoring games against those opponents you mentioned. And then when these games that's kind of like a bad team versus a bad team, I think it could go over. But it's probably just going to be a stay off for me. I'm probably not going to end up betting this game, but my look would be the Coyotes.
All right, lean Coyotes for Nick, but not going to get involved officially. I think in terms of player props, at least on Arizona, Schmaltz and Krause. I mean, don't overthink it. These are the 2 guys that have really been getting it. Whatever offense they've gotten, a lot of it's been from those 2 sources. So Nick Schmaltz, Lawson Krause for the Arizona Coyotes could be worth prop looks here in this game. For Philadelphia, it's tough to be going crazy with props with them because they've struggled to score goals a lot. But this could be a night to give Owen Tippett a look. JVR to get off the schneid. Konechny's been their best offensive player this year. Give some of those players a look. By the way, it looks like they're going to be – this guy should be starting to get something going offensively for them. We know there's a skill set there for him to be a solid player offensively, but it just hasn't happened yet for Morgan Frost. But they're going to give him, it looks like, potentially power play 1 opportunity tonight. So whether it's power play props or just props in general on him, maybe a sprinkle there as well for Morgan Frost, who's a guy that they've said has got offensive capabilities. We just haven't seen it yet. It's kind of struggled here in his first tour of duty in the NHL. We'll see if he can get going with the opportunity he has tonight. All right, final game for this Sunday card, Boston Bruins, Vegas Golden Knights. Boston minus 160, road favorite, 6 the total in this game. So I jumped on this bet yesterday. And when I bet it, I didn't even get the absolute best number. I got minus 135 on Boston. That's what it was when I took them. It's now up to minus 160. So, for the purposes of the show, I have to go with Bruins in regulation here just to get a little, like if you haven't bet it now, that's probably what I would do. Bruins in regulation instead of the full game money line just to get better value. Look, we got Boston, revenge spot. They lost to Vegas at home, the team that snapped their undefeated home winning streak to start the year at TD Garden in the Bruce Cassidy return to Boston. Now the shoe's on the other foot. Now you've got the Bruins not only trying to avenge that loss, but, they can't give themselves too much, grief and, be too upset about the Arizona game. They ran into a red hot brick wall goalie in Vejmelka. They had 40+ shots in that game. And it was just unfortunate. Miscommunication. They thought it was going to be icing. And they hesitated, and it led to a turnover. That led to the game-winning goal in the final seconds for Arizona. But obviously losing to Arizona, you don't feel good, even if you do think you outplayed the team and you deserve the win. So bounce-back spot for Boston. They have yet to lose 2 straight games. They have yet to drop 2 in a row this season, the Bruins. So that's on the line here. Losing to Vegas at home earlier this week. And Vegas, too, is still not playing, I think, at their best. And Jack Eichel once again is questionable for this game, not fully healed. It looks like he returned against Philadelphia the other night, but now he's back, not fully recovered from the lower body injury. So they said he was feeling pain again after the Philly game. He didn't practice with the Golden Knights yesterday, so he's questionable for the game tonight against the Bruins, and obviously he'll be missed. But the bottom line is, an all-mark in net for the Bruins. And what's his record? 15-3 this year. 1.82 goals against average, 939 save percentage. I mean, he's just been magnificent for the Bruins. He's back in net tonight. So a pretty easy decision for me. I mean, Boston hasn't lost 2 in a row this year. I expect them to be bring a hell of an effort here after losing to Arizona and having this Vegas team be the team that snapped their home win streak earlier this week. So I'm on Boston. I bet him yesterday minus 135 full game money line. But now for the purposes of the show, we'll have to recommend regulation here instead on the Boston Bruins, which you can get in this one right around even money with the Bruins in reg. Actually, you can get a little bit better than that. Boston in regulation at around plus 105 to plus 110. Nick, what do you think here? Bruins, Golden Knights.
Echo a lot of the statements you made. I wish I would have got the Bruins yesterday. Instead, I got them today at, I think they were at minus 150, and I just took regulation just because I'm not laying minus 150. The Golden Knights obviously snapping that incredible home win streak by the Bruins has got to piss them off. So I think we'll see a bounce back from the Bruins, who definitely shouldn't have lost that game versus the Coyotes. I think Swayman played like a paper bag. He let everything in. That was a pretty poor performance from Swayman. And I think the record shows, and the goalie's record and the team's record with the goalie shows who the team plays better in front of Allmark. They're 16-2 in front of Allmark, who's, I think, just the better goalie in general. I wouldn't talk anyone off minus 1.5 regulation money line. I think the Bruins win this game pretty handedly. That's my look on it.
There you go. Like in Boston here, I'm going to go in regulation, Nick, as well with them in this game. And it's not just Eichel who may not play. We know Pietrangelo's away on a personal matter. There's a illness or a health issue of some kind, I believe, in his family, and he's tending to that. And we certainly hope things are going to be okay on that front. But it's not just Eichel, and it's not just Pietrangelo now. Shea Theodore. You know, you're now talking, when you talk Pietrangelo and Theodore, you're talking about maybe the 2 best defensemen on the Vegas Golden Knights, and Theodore is out for this game as well due to a leg injury. So, all of a sudden now the depth gets tested on this Vegas Golden Knights blue line going into the game tonight against the Boston Bruins. Their blue line is shaping up to be Braden McNabb, and Zach Whitecloud has to move up to the top pair now. Alec Martinez with Daniil Miramonov, who's going to be inserted into the lineup now, and he's going to have to play on the second pair. Nick Hague and Ben Hutton. So you've definitely got some shuffling of the deck chairs with the blue line. I don't know if that's a good thing. You know, sometimes that's where the communication issues can happen when you've got changes on the blue line. That's when mistakes can happen, turnovers with the puck. And obviously the Boston Bruins, with the way they've gotten the top guys like Bergeron, Marchand, Pasternak to play, but they're getting Taylor Hall playing some of the best hockey he's played since becoming a member of the Bruins. That could be trouble for the Vegas Golden Knights, having a depleted back end here tonight against this Boston team. All right, there is the Sunday card. Great stuff from our special guest, Nick. Nick, we'll have you back on definitely later on this season. Anytime you want to join us, let us know. Just tell everybody how they can follow you on Twitter.
My Twitter handle is just KCIN, so Nick in reverse, 780. Not the most sports capper handle, but that's what I'm at right now. I post NHL, NBA, or not NBA right now. It's been a little rough, but NHL, NFL, NFL props especially. It's been pretty great, but you'll always find NHL daily for me. That's my go-to sport. That's why I'm on the show here, and hope to be back.
Yeah, I'm definitely in player props tonight. Taylor Hall, I think, is, like I say, undervalued, and he's been producing for Boston in that Bruin Golden Knights game. I still stick with Paul Cotter for Vegas, or Jake Leschyshyn Looks like he's going to be inserted into the lineup. And don't be scared to look at like Nick Waugh or Will Carrier for Vegas. Those are the two guys that they're not like the big guns like Marchessault and Stone, but they have been able to step up at times offensively. You get good bargain bin goal scorer prop value with some of those players, in my opinion, for the Golden Knights. All right. Make sure you check out patreon.com/Ice Guys, just $10 a month. The daily Ice Guys show betting card is posted there. Power ratings, goalie charts, totals charts, and more. Patreon.com/Ice Guys. Make sure you check that out. And a reminder, the Ice Guys live betcast for the month of December is this Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern time, a huge Tuesday slate. Join us on the betcast, live betting commentary, me, Alex, any guests that want to join us. And if you want to join us, just send me a DM. I'll send you the StreamYard link for the betcast. You can join us on the betcast. Bring your booze with you. It's a bar and a pub atmosphere with every betcast. It's a lot of fun. The last betcast was one of the most fun betcasts we've ever had. We just shoot the shit, lots of laughs too during the games. And we saw that Seattle-LA game that night, which was 9-8. That was a lot of fun to have a live betcast with a game like that. So Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, join us for another Ice Guys live betcast. All right, best bets to wrap up this edition of the Ice Guys. Nick, we'll start with you. What do you like for best bet?
Locked in the Kraken money line at +140 tonight, and the Bruins in regulation will be on the Avalanche if it's Binnington announced. If it's Greiss, I'm gonna stay off, and that's probably it for me. Sometimes I live bet if the situation's good, so toss me a follow on Twitter. If you might see a live bet that I usually cash in those.
All right, there we go. I like it. Multiple best bets there for our special guest, Nick, here for this Sunday edition. My best bet, it's going to be Boston here. And I'll go with in regulation, +110, Boston Bruins against the Vegas Golden Knights. I have -135. I want to point this out. My bet is -135. But I don't want to give the best bet on this show at this time to a line that's not available and a line that I no longer love at the -160. So that's why we're going to make in regulation +110, the official best bet for the Sunday edition of the Ice Guys for me. Boston in regulation, +110 against Vegas for my best bet. That'll wrap up this edition of the Ice Guys. Thanks to everyone in the chat for joining us. Hit the like button on the way out. We appreciate it very much. A reminder, the Ice Guys is live 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday, noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms: Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more. Download the Ice Guys podcast when you can't watch the show live. For our special guest, Nick, I'm Ian, SRT Bets, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Sunday. Enjoy the games and good luck. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow on Monday for another edition of the Ice Guys presented by National Hockey Now.